10B, you're going to receive an oral report regarding City Council Subcommittee review of the salary and benefits for the elected City Clerk and City Treasurer positions.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, we're providing an oral report this evening to give you an update on, am I supposed to be starting? I'm sorry. The purpose of this report is an update on a review by a City Council subcommittee appointed by Mayor Ruane to make a scheduled consideration of the salary and benefit program that is offered to the elected City Clerk and the elected City Treasurer positions. By resolution and action of the City Council in 2006, you identified an intent with each four-year election cycle at which time the elected City Clerk and elected City Treasurer positions are on the ballot, that the City Council would make a review of the salary and benefits program in a timely manner at the opening of the filing season in order that any interested individual in San Bruno who would qualify for one of those positions has an opportunity to know before taking out papers and before standing for election what is the salary and benefit program. In 2006, the City Council established a four-step salary range for each of the positions, and that salary range has been in effect since that time. In 2009, the City Council undertook the scheduled review for the then current election season and declined to take any action to amend the salary and benefit program that had been put into effect in 2006. We're bringing this item to you tonight in order that you could discuss and hear and then discuss the subcommittee's recommendation as to the salary and benefit program for these positions going forward. It's my intent tonight simply to give you that background as I just did, and then to briefly outline the consensus of the subcommittee, which consisted of council members Ibarra and Salazar, and then to turn over any additional discussion to them and to the City Council as a whole. That subcommittee meeting took place last Thursday afternoon. That is the reason for the oral report as opposed to a written report in your packet this evening. And the subcommittee, upon consideration, is recommending that the City Council consider an annual cost of living adjustment based on a cost of living index to be determined, not yet determined, up to an amount of not to exceed 2% to be provided on an annual basis beginning at the conclusion of the 5th year of any incumbent service in either the elected clerk or elected treasurer office, only to the 4th step or the top step of the salary range. So in order to try and explain the effect of that, the subcommittee is recommending that the 4-step salary schedule remain in effect for any newly elected clerk or treasurer, and that the progression through those steps would occur on an annual basis until the 4th step at the end of the 4th year is achieved. At that time, then, should that individual stand for and be re-elected, stand for election and then be re-elected, a cost of living adjustment would be provided to the top step or the then current salary of that re-elected incumbent at the end of the 5th year of their service or the 1st year of their 2nd term, and then each annually thereafter, as long as their elected service continues. In that manner, I believe it was the intent of the subcommittee to differentiate the benefits and salary program for the elected for those elected positions, and to recognize the benefit of continuing service to the city in elective office. The City Council Subcommittee also considered the provision of a benefit that is not currently extended to those two elective positions, but that is extended to the elected officials who are on the City Council, the mayor and the City Council members. And that benefit is a opportunity to take advantage at no cost of the city's internet service through the cable television company and a reduced rate for the provision of cable television services. This program is offered, as I indicated, to City Council members and in different, at different levels to certain individuals on our city staff. The intent behind that opportunity, as I understood it from the discussion of the subcommittee, was to recognize the need and the benefit to the city and to the city's work program of those two elected officials like yourselves being available at the city's option via internet. So at all hours, at all away from the office, that those individuals can be communicated with reliably via internet service. So with that, I'll just say one more thing, and that is that should the City Council consensus provide some direction to staff, we would return with an action item at your next regular meeting, but being as that is on August 27th and therefore after the close of the filing period for the 2013 November election, it would be desirable tonight for you as a matter of public information to provide some signal about what your intent is so that, again, the intent of the 2006 action can be delivered to the public, and somebody who may be interested in running for one of those elective offices would have an opportunity to have an idea about what the salary and benefits program would be should they be elected to that office. So with that, I'll turn it over to the subcommittee for any additional comments.
Okay. Rico or Michael? Ken, I'm
well,
sorry.
I'd just like to reiterate what the city manager said. I'm Ken.
You're Ken. I'll get it right.
Is that the consensus of the subcommittee was to not change the salary for the first 4 years. Keep it as it is from 2006 at those 4 steps. The added, for those first 4 years, the added benefit would be the free internet and the reduced cost for full cable TV service. And then my comment as far as I don't believe, I know there was some talk about a 2% cap in subsequent years after the first 4 years, but then there was also some discussion as to how that might compare with no increases with the rest of the employees, the other bargaining units. So that's something that needs to be discussed, and maybe there's a condition in comparison with other bargaining units in the city. One thing that, in my opinion, we wanted to do was to once and for all separate these elected officials from any implication of being compared with management or mid-management bargaining units. So I think we're going towards that goal.
Michael?
Thank you. I'll echo what Councilman Navarro said regarding the separation of the career employees that are represented by the bargaining units versus an elected position, which I felt is different enough. And in general, I mean, it's a position that's really contingent on the public's opinion of that person's performance, and after the 4 years, they're up for election, and they have to go and demonstrate to the people that they are worthy of maintaining the position. So it's really a 4-year appointment, if you will, that has to be redone every 4 years. And so it is different enough, I felt, from the other positions, the permanent city positions, that we should make that distinction and not tie them to that. One of the reasons I felt that we should come forward with the recommendation that we did is because if someone were to stay in that position after the initial term, if someone were to be reelected to a second term, their salary would be stagnant at that point, and possibly be something that would make people think twice about wanting to run for more than one term. And there's clearly a benefit to having one person stay for longer than a single term. If we assume that over the first 4 years they're going to be learning the job, maybe they get really good at it, and people come to recognize them as a person that they go to at City Hall. And then if we were to have that position turn over regularly, it probably wouldn't be as efficient. And then in terms of maintaining the current structure, the city clerk did provide us a salary survey for other clerks in the county, and so we were able to compare it, what we were doing with our base salary versus what the other cities are doing. And our top step right now matches closely, although possibly a little bit below what the other cities are doing. So we can assume that at the end of a 4-year term, we're paying what other cities are paying a seasoned, experienced city manager. So the salary does seem city clerk. So that they do seem reasonable in terms of what everyone else is doing, and then the cost of living would then just be an adjustment to make sure that position doesn't fall too far out of sync. One thing to note, because we are keeping that same scale, if a new city clerk were elected, that person would be starting at the bottom of the scale, the first step, and then have to work their way back up. So this change only affects city clerks that are reelected to a second or third term.
Two questions, I guess. The comparison of city clerks, was that a combination of elected and appointed clerks?
Yes.
Okay. And so let's, just for example, for the public's consumption here. So if the existing city clerk were to be reelected, she wouldn't get an increase for another year?
So the term right now, it's a 4-year term, and the increase occurs on the anniversary of the election. So it would...
What I'm getting at is...
I'm sorry, is it...
retroactivity, is that...
We didn't discuss anything being retroactive, so at least my understanding was that it would be on the first anniversary of the election, so there would be no immediate increase,
Right.
But 1 year from this next election, there would be an increase.
Okay.
That was my understanding.
Right, so that would, in effect, then, if I'm doing the math correctly, step 1 would occur at election, step 2, the beginning of the second year, beginning of the third year, beginning of the fourth year, and then not until the end of the 5th year, so there would be a gap there. Is that correct? Is that your intent?
It's complicated, but when is the 4th step awarded?
The 4th step is awarded at the beginning of the 4th year of service, at the conclusion of the 3rd year of service.
Okay. And for all intents and purposes, we're talking about if our current city clerk were to be reelected, she is starting her 9th year.
That's correct.
Which means what?
Which means that if this goes into effect, then I guess the rhythm of this of these increases, first, second, third, fourth step, then it would seem that if it was to stay in the same pace, that, you know, the start of the fifth year would be the increase.
In order to avoid any gap,
Yeah.
it would need to start at the beginning, or at the conclusion of the fourth year, at the beginning
Yeah,
of
so
the
I
fifth year.
somewhat question, you know, the end of the fifth year or the beginning of the fifth year.
Carol?
I don't believe that I should, or the city treasurer should have a cost of living raise when the rest of the city didn't get a cost of living raise. That's something that we never came back to you in 2010 because none of the other people were getting raises and we didn't feel that we should have one either. So that really took care of the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh year.
I understand that. What I was getting at is that this is kind of a one-off. In other words, you're talking about going forward for a new city clerk. So that clerk would start 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a re-elected, but you're going for the third term. So I just didn't know when that kicked in because this is a kind of a special circumstance.
I would assume it'd start when the new term starts.
True.
Starts when
Right.
we vote on it.
Yeah, and given that clarification, I think that makes more sense than what we had proposed before. That's at every anniversary there is something, some adjustment, and we've covered only the first 3 anniversaries. Nothing happens on the 4th anniversary, and so it would make sense for what we're proposing to kick in at the 4th anniversary, not the 5th anniversary, as I had initially said.
Okay.
And for clarity, there is no retro. We're not, the city clerk, the current city clerk, if re-elected, is not asking for years 5 to 8.
Okay. Irene, any comments?
I'd like to hear Mr. Lumpke.
Oh, Mr. Lubke, do you have something?
Yes, I'm just interested, since I'm planning to, at this time, planning to file, but I am interested from the fact that someone listening to this report won't understand what is going on. Can we talk in terms of an incumbent who's been here, been incumbent for 4 years, or let's just say for 4 years? Does that person do a start over and go in the fifth, when re-elected, go to the base salary? Or do they go to an increase salary? In other words, a 5th level.
Okay, we'll try to clarify
Do you understand my question?
No, that's what I was getting at too. What happened? This
Well,
is
that's what I thought you were getting at, but I didn't I couldn't follow you.
okay. All right, we'll get it. We'll get an answer for you.
Through the chair, Mr. Mayor. Okay.
Ken?
Currently, the way the ordinance reads and the salary structure is that there are 4 steps, and every newly elected city clerk starts at step 1. Through the each year of the term, the 4 years, is a step. And so at the 4th year, the beginning of the 4th year of that term, that is currently now it's $8,000. If it stays the way it is, and it has stayed the way it is since 2006, year 5, it's $8,000. Year 6, it's $8,000. So year 7, there is no increase from the 4th year on for any re-elected city clerk.
The base remains a higher level, though. The base remains a higher level.
Right. So if there's any new city clerk elected at an election, then they start at step 1. What we're addressing as a subcommittee is to increase any year after year 4.
Okay. Michael, agreed?
Right, right. And to add a little more color to that, you know, I questioned why we needed a 4-step salary structure for an elected position where the duties are clearly defined by law. And the rationale, which I agree with, is that a person starting would be very inexperienced, not providing as much value as they would be after completing a 4-year term, where they would then be more experienced, and therefore they, over their 4-year term, it's a merit-based increase for those 4 years. And then, of course, if following that rationale, on year 5, we wouldn't expect them to go back to their year 1 experience, but rather continue to be experienced persons, and we adjust from the 4th year level going forward.
And just for a little added color, the percentage increase between each step is 6%. Between 1 and 2, 6% all the way. So it's what is that, 24% increase from, 18% increase from step 1.
Irene, did you have something to add?
I do. First of all, I think the internet added on is an excellent idea. That means that after 5 o'clock, we can still email the city clerk and expect a response. Is that what that means? So anyway, the internet thing is great. I have as you all know, well, maybe Michael doesn't know because he hasn't been here for that long, but I have a philosophical problem with any elected officials getting raises and steps. And I realize that part of the city clerk's, any city clerk's job in this city anyway, is to maintain office hours, and they are there from 8 to 5, which is why we have more of a salary than we do for city council people. I've been on this board, Ken and Jim and I have been on this board for 18 years now. We'll be starting our 19th year, if you guys get reelected, our 19th year. And we have not had one raise since we started. And personally, I don't think we should, but we definitely are much more experienced than we were at our first year. So philosophically, I'm totally opposed to any increases. Our regular, and correct me if I'm wrong, the way life is set up right now, our managers go to the top step and that's where they sit. They don't get any raises over that. Is that correct, city manager?
It is correct. However, the salary and benefits program for the managers in our organization is, like all of our employees, subject to bargaining unit agreements, which from time to time may be negotiated and may provide changes to salaries or benefits. It is also the case that there have been no salary changes, I believe, for any city bargaining unit since 2008.
Okay, so I cannot philosophically give it to an elected official when our other people don't have it, and there is no qualifications for running for city clerk or city treasurer. You have to be 18 and a resident of San Bruno and a registered voter. That's it. And then you go out and campaign, and if you win, you win, and that's all there is to it. So I'm opposed, except for the internet.
Rico, comments?
I probably don't have a firm position because we all know Rico likes to see things in writing, and with listening to the dialogue, it'll be important what comes back. What I do want to point out is, I believe, I'm almost sure, it was the Vice Mayor and I who in '06 sat with the city treasurer and the city clerk and reviewed this. It came back that if my memory's correct, that in '09, we were supposed to have this come back and be reviewed between May and June. Reason being, prior to the filing period opening, so that everybody can be communicated exactly what the benefits and what the salary and/or compensations are. So with this coming during the filing period, which will now be after the filing period, I think defeats that purpose. I don't know that we did, as the city clerk mentioned, since there really was no change in '09, there may not have been anything that came back, and I don't know if it met, I just don't remember, but I remember the '06.
There was an item that came forward in 2009. There was no change to the 2006 program.
Right, so, can't speak, and I just don't remember that. Just the '06, I do happen to recall, and I know it was, action was, and review was to be done prior to the opening file period, for the reason of wanting people to know. I don't, if this were to be automatic, out the 5th year on, I don't agree with that. If we have city employees, as was already mentioned, that are furloughed, if we're salary freezed, if we're in hard economic times, I think we all are in the boat together. So I don't think that should be an automatic. When we don't know what the formula is, I know that hasn't been established. That's important for me to see. I know back when Irene and I met, they were tied to management. That's how it was, and that was separated at that point. So that was established back in '06, that no longer correlated, that one received the other. As far as the internet as well, and that, I mean, I'm fine with that. I think that makes a lot of sense. I don't know that that gives you a lot of food for thought, but those are some of my comments.
Okay, and no secret that, you know, I agree with Irene as far as what she said, but having said that, it is sort of a special circumstance because I think we're very fortunate that we do have, even though there's no big qualifications listed, a very, very competent city clerk and a very competent city treasurer. We really lucked out. I am of the opinion that we actually should appoint a city clerk and a city treasurer going forward, and that'll take a vote of the people, but that's later on. Having said that, the automatic kind of bothers me, but given the circumstance of where we are right now, and this, in fact, I think this year, hopefully being a one-off, I would go along with the recommendation of the subcommittee in this particular case. But like I said, I think we have to be very cautious. Nobody, especially the council, knows this more than anybody else. You don't get into this elected office, especially in San Bruno, to make money. But you know, the clerk is very well compensated, so is the treasurer, and we're very fortunate that, in fact, they do a very, very good job. The citizens should know that, you know, we could have someone in there that wasn't qualified at all, that just happened to get in there because of a fluke during an election. We would actually have to spend a lot more money to hire somebody competent to actually do the work behind the scenes. So having said that, I will go along with the recommendation of the subcommittee.
I'm hearing recommendations, and I know I'm fully supportive of recommending an increase. The question is what it is going to be and at what time does it get implemented. I believe that's enough to let any prospective candidate know that this is what your starting salary is for the first 4 years. However, there is in the hopper some discussion about the 5th year or any subsequent year after the 4th year.
If I'm understanding the consensus of the council, that is exactly as I understand it, that there would be no change except for the provision of the same benefit that the city council receives relative to the cable television services. Otherwise, for a potentially newly elected clerk or treasurer who might take office this year following the November 2013 election, there would be no change to the existing salary and benefits program. The only change that I'm hearing as a result of the subcommittee's recommendation and what appears to be pending consensus of the city council, is to consider what might happen for a elected official whose tenure continues beyond a first term, which would not be anybody who is out there in the public now who might want to take out papers. So I believe the situation is clear, if I've understood you correctly.
Okay, I believe you have.
To the
Rico?
chair. So, I think that's correct. But, you know, I also, maybe just share because I was a former employee, I saw it from another side. Way before, it used to be that the city clerk and city treasurer would have to come before the podium, and some felt beg or plead and ask for their increases aside from the bargaining units. And it would sometimes cause quite a bit of emotion. You had elected people here and elected person there, and in essence, they're elected by the people. I mean, you could argue the point, since we all talked last time about trusting everybody, is that we should have it go out to the people who actually put them in office about what ranges of salary should be and those type of compensations. However, the reason this system was set up, in my opinion, for the 4 steps automatic is because, in essence, the voters have brought them into office, the voters can take people out of office, and it also brought down, I thought, the tension level as far as having this type of dialogue between the two parties. It was contentious back then, and I remember watching some of the meetings and tearful. I mean, not on my part, but on the people that had to stand over there on that podium. So I think this is a better system, and with that system, however, comes the thought that then it can never go up because it's embedded, and every 4 years it's reviewed. So I don't think we can just, you know, sit here in eternity and just say, well, it can't ever go up. So I think once we have a formula, once it's very well detailed and written on that, then I'm willing to review that.
If I could just close this off, there was discussion as to comparing between how the city council is afforded an increase and so to correct the vice mayor, we did get one increase in our last 18 years. And
Sorry.
and it was about $50. But it was, and we, you know, it was a very awkward time, and it was, we didn't, as much as we, you know, voted on it, it was very awkward to, you know, to self-impose an increase. Maybe that's something that the subcommittee can talk about again, is to put the formula in place, and then quite possibly, you know, have it be, you know, have the elected official, you know, make the proposal. I've heard from my colleagues to say that, you know, we have to stand, you know, with whatever the, you know, the bargaining is with what our employees, you know, get or don't get. And so, as much as we're not going to keep a formula, you know, with those bargaining units, I believe that an increase is an increase, and if, you know, heaven forbid we get some hard times again, that there probably shouldn't be an automatic.
Okay, city manager, you have direction?
I do. This item will return to you on August 27th for an action so that it doesn't linger. But again, I believe we have adequate information to fully advise any interested candidates. Thank you.
Great, thank you.